it's Jordan Teen 1, and in this video I'll be continuing with my magnetic animal series, and today I'll be showing you how to make this sweet little donkey. So here's what he looks like. And for this one I used a lighter gray and then black for the hooves and the tail and for the accents. But today I'm going to be using Rainbow Loom brand bands, so their gray is a little bit darker. It's more of a charcoal gray. I'm going to be using that for the main body, and I have 164 of the gray. I have 32 black, and then I have 12 white. You can make this using the Rainbow Loom, or you can use the Monster Tail Loom. So today I'm going to be showing it on the Rainbow Loom, but if you are using a Monster Tail, you're just going to be working with 6 pins in the shape of a rectangle. And then on the Rainbow Loom, you can see that I've removed this center row of pins, and I do have the pins in line with one another. And the same thing, we're going to be using 6 pins in the shape of a rectangle. And then, as I said, it's going to be magnetic, so I have these little magnets, these little round ring magnets, that I will be using at the end of each of the legs, and I can show you the package. They are called super magnets, and they're made by the Magnet Source. You can see how big they are next to the size of a dime, so they're pretty small. And there is a warning on the package that says extremely strong magnets, not for children, because they don't want the kids to get their fingers pinched in between the magnets when they go together. And the size is 0.375 inches for the outer diameter. Now, if you don't have access to magnets, that's perfectly fine. You can definitely make this little guy without having the magnets on, and I will show you how to do that. So without the magnets, what you would do is start with black, and you want to start on the left hand side. It doesn't really matter which one, and you're going to stretch across diagonally up and to the right and twist. So you're just going to that pin above but on the opposite side. And now you want to go to the pin above on the left, and you're going to cross this to make an X. And you do want to twist that as well. And now you'll add a second layer of black, and you're going to be starting on the bottom left, going diagonally up here, and then you're going to cross it again, so from the top on the left down to the bottom right. And then that's how you would begin if you're not using magnets. Now if you are using magnets, let me just take these off. I will show you what to do. Oh, and I also should mention I am using a twisty tie here. I'm going to use this to thread the rubber bands through the middle of the magnet, and this is just your average twisty tie that comes in your trash bags or plastic bags, and I've just cut the sides off a little bit to make it more thin, so I just cut it up close to the wire. So what you would do is take one magnet, and they are a little bit difficult to separate. The easiest way is just to slide one of them off. And you're going to take your twisty tie and stick it through the center of the ring there. And then you want to take 4 black rubber bands. So I'm just going to take them all at once and slide this through. Just a little ways on. You want it to stay in front of where the magnet is. And then you're just going to bend this up to make a little hook. And then I'm going to slide the end of it through. And then I'll just continue to gently pull this through till the magnet's right about in the middle. And now I can release this. And so now what I want to do is find both ends of each of the bands. So it can be a little bit hard to do. What I like to do is just pull very gently on one side and then see which band moves on the other side, so I'll know where the other end of it is. And now I'm just going to pick both of these bands up on my hook, and I'll place this on the 4th pin up on the right hand side. As I said, we're just going to be working with 6 pins in the shape of a rectangle, so you can really do it anywhere that you have access to 6 pins. And so now I'm just going to take another one, and I'm going to try and find each of the sides here. So I'll take this band on the top and pull. Oops, this is trying to come off. I want to make sure it stays on there. And I can see it's this other one that's on the top here that's moving. So I just want to get that very top one on my hook. And now I'm going to stretch this across diagonally to the left. Get both sides of that band to go on there. And now I just have to do this 2 more times. So I'll grab the one from the bottom and pull. And if you pull too hard, they're going to want to come through. So that's why I'm saying just pull gently. So I found the other end of it. And now these 2 are going to go on the bottom left here. And then finally I should have just 2 ends left. I'm going to grab it from the bottom. And then I'll go through the top, and this is going to stretch out to the top on the right. So as I said, it can be a little bit tricky because they do get intertwined. And then I try to just separate them as much as possible. Sometimes they are a little bit interlinked, and that's okay. Now at this point I'm going to start adding the gray bands for the rest of the leg. So if you've made this without the magnet and you've put your 2 layers on, this is where you're going to pick up with the rest of the tutorial here. So now you should be at the same point whether you're using magnets or not. So I'm always going to start at the bottom left and go diagonally up and to the right. So I'm doing gray this time, and then I'm going to cross it, and there's no need to twist. So at this point you should have 3 rubber bands on each of the pins, and you're just going to take that bottom rubber band and pull it over the top. This is the same concept as a double cross fishtail bracelet if you've made that in the past. And now I'm going to put 7 more layers of the gray on. So again, I'm always starting at the bottom left. So this will be my first layer out of the 7. There's going to be 8 total since I already put 1 gray on first. And now I'll remove the bottom, so it's going to be black this time still. Push that down. So I'm just repeating the same steps. Of course, if you wanted to give your donkey some different colors, if you had light gray and dark gray and you wanted to intermix them, you could do that. But I'm just going to stick with this darker gray. Now this is going to be my 3rd layer. And now my 4th. So I think this part is pretty easy to do. And you do want to keep pushing down after every layer. So this is number 5. And now number 6. And now finally my last layer for this leg. I'm removing that bottom layer. Going to push that down. And now what I'm going to do is take the bottom two rubber bands that are on the right, and I'm just going to move them to this pin above here. And then I want the bottom two rubber bands to come over the top. I'm going to repeat that on the left, so the bottom two are going to move up. And now the bottom two on this pin come over the top. And now I'm just going to take this off. But what I would recommend is if you do have two hooks, I would take your second hook to remove this and use that as your holding hook for all four of the legs. If you don't have a second hook, you can always just take this off and then slide the legs onto a pen or pencil, would probably be the easiest thing to do. So I am going to take my second hook and I'm going to remove it from the right. I'm going to leave both of these rubber bands on, and you can hold it with your finger if you'd like, and pick up the other two. So now that is one of the legs for the donkey, and I have to repeat this process 3 more times. So I will just fast forward here, but if you feel like you need to follow along again, I'll put the time in the video for you to go back to. So I'm just going to set this aside and go ahead and make my other 3 legs. I've now completed all 4 legs and I have them on my holding hook, so I'm just going to set these aside. And now the next part of the donkey that we're going to do is the ears. So for this you're going to take one single band of gray and then you want to quadruple it on your hook. So you're just going to put it on, twist, and then put it back on, twist, put it back on, and then one more time. So you'll have 4 loops on your hook. And then you're going to take 2 more gray bands and get them through the hook here. And then you just want to slide these 4 loops onto these other 2 bands. And you just want to put it right about in the middle there. And now I'm going to stretch this across the loom. So 2 of the loops are going on the left, and then the other 2 are going to stretch straight across. And now what you're going to do is take the bottom 2 bands and they're going to stretch down to the pin below on the right here. And then you're going to do the same thing on the left, just the bottom 2. And pull that down. So it's going to make a bow tie shape. And now you're going to take 2 more gray bands and they're going to go straight across the bottom. And then 2 more are going to go straight across the top. Now I'm going to remove the bottom 2 bands so they have to come off both pins on either side and slide into the middle. Push that down, and now I'm going to do another set of bands in the same position, so 2 across the bottom and then 2 more across the top. And now I want the bottom 2 bands to come off of all 4 pins. Going to move that into the middle. And now I'm going to take the bands on the bottom and they're going to move up. So on the right here I'm just removing the bottom 2 and moving them to the pin above. And then the same thing on the left. Just make sure they both make it on there. And now I want the bottom 2 bands to come over the top. And now what I want to do is actually move these down to the next pin below. And I just do it that way because of the way that the ears are angled. They need to move inward for the looping process, but then they need to move back to the bottom. So I'm taking the bottom 2 and they're moving down. And then the same thing on the left, they're just moving to the pin below. And now I'm going to repeat that process again for the second ear. So I'm quadrupling a single band. And then it's going to slide onto 2 more gray bands. Slide it right to the middle. And now I'm going to place this on the second pin above where the other one is on the left. Stretch it across. And now I want the bottom 2 bands to come down. Just going to stretch out and go around the pins below on both sides to make that bow tie shape. And now 2 more bands are going straight across the bottom. And then 2 for the top. The bottom 2 bands are going to come off and into the middle. Push down. And now I have another set that's going straight across the bottom. And then another set across the top. And all 4 of the bottom layer need to come off, all 4 pins. So I only got 1 band there, I want 2 from each. Push down. Now this time I want the top 2 bands to move down. So I'm just taking them off and moving them to the pin below on each of the sides here. Then I'll remove the bottom 2 bands. And now I want these to again move back up. And push this down. So these 6 pins here are the main pins that we're going to be working with. And of course on the monster tail you only have these 6 pins besides the 2 on the end. So now I'm going to start the top of the head. So I'm taking 2 of the gray bands and they're going to go from the bottom left here to the top right. And I do want to twist. And now I'm going to take 2 more gray, and this time they're going from the top left to the bottom right. It's going to make a long X, and you do want to twist this as well. And now finally 2 more bands that are going straight across the middle, and twist. And now I'm going to put on another layer before I do any looping. So I'm starting at the bottom right, and I'm just doing 1 single band now for this layer. And I'm just going to outline all 6 pins in the shape of the rectangle. So it's just going to be one right after the other. Just working around here. And now I want to remove the bottom rubber bands. So for this step, on the corner pins, you're actually going to have 4 rubber bands to remove since we have these ears on here. So I'm just going to take 2 at a time. And then I'll take the next bottom 2. In the middle here, you're only going to have the 2. And then on the end, it's going to be 4 again. On the other side, it's the same thing, so it's going to be 4 from the ends, and then 2, and then back to 4. Push this down, and now on this next layer, we're going to be adding the eyes. So to do that, what you're going to do is take a black rubber band, you're going to quadruple it, and then you're just going to take 1 single gray, and you just want to slide this on. So you got to get all 4 of the loops to go on. Slide it to the middle. Just going to set this to the side for a minute, and I'll do the other eye. So it's the same process. Quadruple, and then slide it on a single gray and move it to the middle. So I'm again just going to outline these pins, and I'll start on the bottom right. I do want one of the eyes to be there because the right side is going to be the face or the front side of the donkey. So I'm just going to place this on. That black just sits right in the middle. And now I'll do the other eye. And then I'm just going to continue around using this gray, just single bands. And now I'll remove the bottom 2 rubber bands. So I'm just going to go around to all 6 pins. Push this all down. And now for this next layer, what I'm going to do is take 2 gray bands, and they're going to stretch along all 6 pins. So I'll just start on the left here and stretch it across the 3 on the left. And now I'm going to take my hook and just stretch it the rest of the way. It's definitely going to be tight, and depending on your brand of rubber band, some are more stretchy than others, so it can get very tight. And now I want to remove the bottom 2 rubber bands, and I just want to warn you that these center ones on either side are a little bit harder to do. So I'm just going to grab the bottom 2, and a lot of times when you try to pull these 2 center ones over when you have a band that's stretched all the way around, it has a hard time wanting to go on. This top one wants to come over the top as you're pulling it. So I would recommend just making sure that everything is down to the bottom of the pin. And that way it works out a little bit easier. And the same thing for the other side here. Going to make sure this is to the bottom. And push down. And now I'm going to do that same thing again. So 2 bands that are going to go around all 6 pins. And then remove the bottom. And you will feel as you go to remove these bottom rubber bands that it's definitely going to be a lot tighter. It's a little bit harder to work with. And push down. Next, I'm going to do a layer with 2 gray bands at once. It's going to make this long X, so from the bottom left, stretching up to the top right, and I don't need to twist this time. I only twisted at first since it was the very first layer at the top of the head. And now from the top left to the bottom right, this long stretch with 2 bands, and then 2 more straight across the center. And now the bottom layer comes off. Again, it's going to be tight, this bottom layer. You'll definitely notice it when you're going to do the looping. Push this down. And now I'm going to switch to white. It's just going to outline the 6 pins with single rubber bands. And now the bottom. These won't be as tight. And now I'm going to use a black rubber band to put the nostrils on. So for this part, It's going to be on the right hand side. It's going to be one single black. And I'm going to stretch it from the first pin up to the third, and I'm skipping this middle one. I'm going to go on the left side of the center, so it's just going around and then to the top. And now I'm going to do another layer of white. It's going to again outline the 6 pins. And now I'm going to remove the bottom layer. So it's going to be the bottom 2 white bands and then also the 1 black band. In the middle here it's going to be the bottom 2, and then at the top again it's going to be the 2 white and then the 1 black. And then I'll just continue around here with just 2 white. And push down. And now I'm going to do another layer of gray. It's going to be 2 bands that are wrapped around all 6 pins at once. It's this tight stretch here. And I'm going to push all of this down and then do the looping. Push down, and now this next layer is going to be the 2 gray that are doing that long diagonal stretch, and then this is going to basically be the neck part here. We've pretty much just completed the head. So these bottom 2 bands come off. Again, they're going to be really tight. And push all of that down. Now at this point we're ready to add the first set of legs. So I'm going to get my holding hook here, and I'm just going to separate the first leg that's on the end, and I want it to go on the bottom here. So I want the 2 loops that are on the end here, I'm going to take them off, and I'm just going to use my fingers to stretch them out and get them to go around the bottom left pin. And you can see it just came off my hook, but that's okay. I'm going to get the other 2 loops, and they're going to stretch straight across to the right. And the arm is facing downward, the magnet part. And now up at the top here, same thing. I'm going to get the next leg, and the 2 loops go on the left, and then the other 2 stretch across to the right. And now before I loop the arms, I'm going to put on another layer. It's going to be gray, and it's just going to outline the pins. And now on the corner pins, you're going to have those bottom 4 to come off, since you have the armbands on there. And you're going to push this down. And now I'm going to repeat that process 5 more times. So I'm just outlining the pins for the next 5 layers. It's going to be single bands. So there's my first one. Going to try and move a little bit quicker through this looping process. And now here's my second layer. Push down. So this will be my third layer. I have 2 more to go here. So this is my fourth. I know there's a lot of steps involved, but I think it's worth the time and effort that you put into it because it really does turn out cute. And now one more time. We're almost getting to the end here. So after we do this looping, we're going to add the other set of legs. And then after that, it's pretty much just the tail, and then you're done. So push this all down. And now I'm going to do that other set of legs. This isn't going to lay flat anymore. So it's the same thing. I'll start on the bottom here. And 2 loops go on the left. And then the other 2 stretch across. You can see my magnets are sticking together. And then at the top, same thing. And again, before I do any looping, I'm going to put another layer on. So this time, it's going to be the 2 gray bands that go around all 6 pins at once. It's this tight stretch. And now it's 4 bands from the corners because we got to get those leg bands off. Push this down here. And now the 2 in the middle. And then 4 again. And then the same thing over here. And push down. So that's the bottom of our body, and we want it to close up now. So I'm going to take the bottom 2 bands and move them into the middle on the right here. And just a warning, this is very tight because this is the bands that stretch all the way around. So it's definitely going to be tight, so don't lose it off your hook. So you just want to move these to the pin above. And then on the top here, same thing, the bottom 2 are just going to come off and move to the pin below. Very tight. And now I want the bottom 4 rubber bands to come off. And now we're going to do that same process on the left. So the bottom 2 are going to come up. And you might want to use your finger to hold the body part down. It just helps you to see what you're doing a little better. And then on the top here, these two bands are going to move down. As I said, you don't want to let those go. And now the bottom 4 will move over the top. It's a little bit hard to work with, but that's getting this body to close up at the bottom here. And now for the tail part, we're going to be taking 4 gray bands. You should have 4 left, and you want to double that, so you're just placing it on, twisting, and putting it back on one time. And now you're going to stretch it across these middle pins. So I'm going to put it on the left and stretch it across to the right. And now I have the bottom 2 bands to come off. It's going to finish it, closing it all the way up in the middle there. And now I'm going to repeat that again. So I'm doubling and stretching across. And I'll remove the bottom 2. These are also going to be tight. Do it again. And now one more time. This should be your last gray. Push down. And now I'm going to do a black like that. That's going to be doubled. Stretching it across and removing the bottom 2. And now what I'm going to do is take 4 black rubber bands, and I'm just going to set them on the left side here. They're just going to be loose. And now I'm going to take 1 single black band, and I'm going to stretch it across. And now I want these 4 loose bands to go into the middle. I'm going to take the bottom 2 black on either side and release. Just try and keep these 4 right in the center here. You might want to just hold them with your fingers. And now what I'm going to do is take the right side and move it over to the left. And then I'm going to take the bottom rubber band and pull it over the top. So there's just 1 single band left on. And I can take this off now. I want to pull this band that's on my hook really tight to make a nice tight slip knot. And now I'm going to take this single slip knot and I want to hide this. So I'm just going to reach through this end and I'm going to pull these bands through. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'll reach through and I'll wrap this around, and then I'm going to pull this through again. You might have to do it 2 or 3 times. We just want it to be hidden. I'll do it one more time here. So now you don't notice that anymore. And then I'm going to take another black band and I'm going to wrap it around these loops at the end, these last 4 bands. Just going to wrap this around as many times as I can. Just going to make that nice and tight. It's just going to help these 2 stay together at the end. And I want to slide this up to the top. And now I'm going to take a pair of scissors and I'm just going to go in the middle of these and snip this. And so here is my donkey, and you can see he needs a little bit of adjusting here. So I'll start at the top with his ears. Just going to adjust them a little bit till I get them angled how I'd like. And then I think his eyes are sticking out a little bit too much, so I'm just going to stretch the bands and push the eyes inside so they're a little bit more hidden. If you want, you can use your hook to do this too. And I also want the eyes to be even. And now as far as his bottom of his face goes, what I'm going to do is pull up here to make it look like there's some separation between the bottom of his face and the rest of his body. And then as far as his nose too, I'm going to fix those bands a little bit. I want to be able to see the black on each of the sides. And then you can fix his legs, need to come down, and his arms here. And I see that this loop is still trying to poke out here, the loop from the slip knot. So what I'm actually going to do is reach my hook inside this band that I had wrapped around the tail here. Try to get through some of these. And I'm just going to pull this down inside to hide it, because I don't like how it keeps coming loose. So that's a little bit better. And now there's one last thing, which is to add the mane. So what I'm going to do for that is, you should have a couple of black bands left. You should have about 6 left. And what you're going to do is just go to the back here, take your hook, find where you want the mane to be. If you want to start at the top here, just reach through a couple of the bands and then take your black band, pull it through. And now what I'm going to do is just tie the 2 ends of this rubber band together like you were tying a shoelace. Pull that nice and tight. And then I'll go down to the next section here, go through a couple more bands, and again pull a black through, and then tie it. So if you have rubber bands that are a little more stretchy, it's easier to use those for this part. I'm going to try and get them to stay pretty much in the center. And you can use as few or as many as you'd like. I'll just show it one more time here. So I'm pulling it through, and then I'm going to tie it. So once you get a bunch of these done, what you can do is take your scissors and then just snip the loops, and then it'll get nice and fringy. And you would continue down a little bit further than that. And you can move this around how you like it. And then he has his mane. And then here's the other one that I showed you at the beginning. Now this was the lighter gray. And I kind of like it a little better with the lighter gray because I just think that the features show up a little more with the contrast between the black and the light gray. It's not as much with this dark gray. But I still think he turns out really cute. I hope that everyone had fun making their donkeys. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!